Welcome to the Celebrity Gourmet Podcast, where we feature top bakery and specialty food entrepreneurs from around the world and share stories and tips on how to create a successful life in the baking world.
Hi, everyone. I'm Milana D'Aniello, and I am the guest host of Celebrity Gourmet Podcast, where I help interview women in the bakery industry to hear how they live creative lives while running their businesses. I want to encourage you to go back and check out our podcast with Katie Pope, founder and CEO of Blue Star Donuts, Olga Sagan of Seattle's Pierogi, and Sarah Brooke of Dessert Gallery. I don't know if you recognize the name, but I am Odette's daughter, here to interview the very special interviewee, Odette D'Aniello. I think you know her background by now, but Mom, do you have anything you want to say? Any tips or words of encouragement for me being a very first-time host on your podcast?
Well, first of all, thank you for volunteering to be my very first guest host, Milana Joy. I am so excited to be interviewed by you today.
Awesome. Okay. So,
and I know you'll do well, so just go for it.
All right. Great. So I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you to kind of give some background to your listeners and then also get the story for myself about how our family ended up in the bakery industry. Today's episode is brought to you by Celebrity Gourmet Ventures, Inc., Celebrity Cake Studio, and Dragonfly Cakes. We're a family-owned and operated specialty bakery in Tacoma, Washington. At Celebrity Gourmet, we have been baking joy into all our artistically designed cakes and desserts for 25 years. We are proud to work with a vibrant team of cake designers and bakers who will help you celebrate the sweet moments in your lives. We've received numerous awards, winning Best of Western Washington for many years in a row, and various small business accolades. To learn more about how you can celebrate yourselves or your loved ones, visit us at celebritycakestudio.com and dragonflycakes.com. or email us at info@celebritycakestudio.com. So, my name is Milana D'Aniello, very first-time host as a podcaster, but a little bit of background on me. I am the fourth-generation baker in my family. I grew up in the bakery business. I have really fond memories of running around, just being in the way and like stealing chocolate, playing on the carts. And then once I got older, helping out on Saturdays and during the summertime. I just have really fond memories of growing up in the bakery. So I have a lot of positive experiences associated with hanging out with my family and learning a lot of cool stuff and being able to express my creativity from a very young age in a place where like nobody knew or understood necessarily. So it felt like such a blessing and an honor to grow up in this bakery where I could be around cake and cool stuff and big machinery and fun art all of the time. This experience is very different than I think the experience of my mom and my aunt and my grandparents and my great-grandfather. So I just kind of want to tell the story about how our family got here. So, Mom, what was your experience growing up in the bakery in the Philippines? You lived in the Philippines until you were 10 years old.
So I lived in the top of Ambrose Tino's bakery in Novolo, Cebu. It was a bakery compound, meaning that it was a big plot of land surrounded by big gates. And within that compound was a bakery manufacturing plant, and all the workers lived there. So they lived, all the men bakers, or the bakers, they lived in the men's quarters, and the women, they lived in the women's quarters, which is upstairs. And we were children, my brother and me, we ran around that bakery compound, running all through big mixers and big ovens and, wooden tables. And there was no OSHA or LNI. So people were shirtless, like they're just like sweat everywhere. It was a bit of a mess. So that's what I remember. I remember learning how to make sugar cookies for the first time because my mom wanted us to learn a skill. And I remember using a fork to mark the spots of my sugar cookies. And I remember that my mother decorated cakes So she was a really amazing baker. And that's how we got into that position, because she had this amazing cake recipe that she sold in the province, and her cousin found her. Ironically, she had worked in that same bakery for my cousin's father, who's my mother's uncle, Latino. So my mother learned how to decorate cakes. And before it was all like gum paste, but you don't make gum paste. Milana, you know how to make gum paste flowers. You know, I taught you how to make the gum paste flowers that's behind me. Those are all hand done. But in the Philippines, you bought it. So you would, if there was one cake, you would go to Auntie Patsy's gum paste showroom.
Auntie Patsy's.
She made gum paste, and she also made sugar decor. So the sugar decors they look like, they had swans, big into swans, the Philippines. So there were swans with little flowers in them. So we would go and shop at Auntie Patsy's, and we would make a cake. That's what I remember.
Yeah, it's all of the memories for under 10 years old. I don't necessarily have a lot either, but I remember when I was 8, you first taught me how to make gum paste and sugar flowers. And I remember sitting at the old bakery, and you and Auntie Marianne and I were there, and it was after school, and we were working on a wedding cake, and you're like, do you want to learn how to do this? And I was like, obviously I want to learn how to do this. So I was sitting there with my little 8-year-old hands, learning how to make fondant flowers for the first time. And it's now like my signature skill. I'm not very good at writing on cakes. I like have,
You're left-handed.
Yeah, because I'm left-handed. But my signature skill is now making fondant roses.
Absolutely. And hydrangeas.
And hydrangeas are a little traumatizing.
Not that trauma.
Okay, so when you were 10, your family immigrated to Guam. Why did you move?
So my uncle started a bakery on Guam. And so my mother ran his bakery. And as his bakery was going, he needed workers. So my father went first. So he went to Guam, immigrated there, and worked for my uncle's bakery. My father had been a teacher, a principal. He wasn't a baker. That wasn't his job. So when he went to Guam, he had to train to bake, and he was not very happy with it. That wasn't his passion. But for us to be able to leave Cebu and have a better life, America is the gold standard. So everybody dreamt of going to America. I remember my parents asking me and my brother, do you want to go to America? And of course, I was like, of course I want to go to America. That's where Big Bird lives. That's where Sesame Street is. That was my dream, right? That's where the Sound of Music was. I didn't know it was in Switzerland then, but that's, of course I want to go to America. So then my father immigrated, and then my brother and me and my mother followed thereafter to work at the bakery. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I was also working at the bakery. I just thought that we were just going as a family to America. I didn't know what that entailed. I was 10, so I didn't know much.
Right. Yeah. So what do you remember about the bakery on Guam?
Well, the bakery on Guam, I remember it was, I was super excited to go because I had 2 girl cousins. I raised who were older than me, and they would visit Cebu, and because they were older, of course you look up to them. They're like my big sisters, right? I was so excited. I inherited all their clothes, and I lived in the Philippines. I was super excited all the time to be around them because first of all, they spoke English, and I thought they were super cool. And so to be with them was like the biggest motivator for me. And they worked at the bakery, and our first job was to slice bread.
Right.
And racks and racks, that we call it Pullman bread, which is a sandwich bread. And it's all rectangular. You know what I'm talking about? It's the ones that are
that has the
square.
It's the loaf with the lid, right?
Right. It's formed. Yes. So we sliced almond bread after school, 200 loaves every day.
That's so much.
7 days a week. Yes. And we were small. So we would get cut in those slicers, right?
What?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. You must have been in like 4th grade.
I was in 5th grade.
5th grade.
So that was our job. And packing bread. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go home until all the work was done. And my brother was in 6th grade, and he learned how to bake using big machineries. So it was a bit, a lot. It was a lot for us as children to deal with that situation, but we had to, because that was part of the deal. We had to work, and that was, we didn't have choice, really.
But you didn't always slice bread. How did you move on from being a bread slicer at the bakery forever? Like, where did you end up in the bakery on Guam?
Oh, so it's super hot in the bakery, and the only air conditioned spot for the office upstairs, which you're not allowed to go to because that's an office and that's where money is counted. So you don't go there. The other place is the cake decorating room. And I would go in there, and only the adults were allowed in there because it's serious business to be in the cake decorating. So I would sneak in when there's no adults, and I would take some icing and I'd write, or I'd type, or I'd pretend like I knew how, but I kept getting in trouble and getting kicked out and, getting in trouble again. But then I got super good at it. And, I learned really quickly, and they're like, oh, she can decorate. So then I moved to the cake decorating room. So all of those cakes like Costco and those racks, those are exactly how I decorated one again. So when I look at them, I'm like, I could do that with my eyes closed.
Like, I've been doing this forever. I could do that in no time flat.
Incentivized, right? Because as I got older, like, you couldn't go out of the bakery until all the work was done. So you just like speed cake decorating. That's what I learned. I mean, that contest I could win probably.
I love that. Okay. So you worked at the bakery until you left for college. And go ahead. So my parents, I worked at the bakery for my uncle's bakery until I was in high school, right? Mm-hmm. Because my parents had their own bakery. They started their own bakery, and I was always the cake decorator. Always. My brother was always the baker. My sister, she was in second grade. Your auntie learned how to do the cash register when she was in 2nd grade. Whoa.
So because my parents partnered with my aunt, and we went to, we opened up a little bakery from the south of Guam. Guam is very small. People know it's like 45 minutes around the island. And we pack snacks. We thought it was gigantic. Like, if you go for one end of the island, you have to pack snacks. And it was only 45 minutes. But that whole deal with my parents partnering with my aunt, that meant my family ran it. So my father and my mother, me and my brother, and then my little sister, Antonian, was the cashier. My older brother was the baker, and I was a cake decorator. Right. So yeah, it was hard. It was hard times. I remember never having Thanksgiving, never having Christmas or birthdays, just because we worked. That was our thing. And my parents would always say, it's because we're poor. We have a fate like this. It was like, that's what happens when you're poor. When
right.
You're poor, you have to deal, and that kind of was the whole mantra of my growing up. You have to take it because you're poor.
Right. So what made you decide to open up your own bakery if this has been your experience so far? Like, up until you were in your 20s, you had this like not that fun, not great, traumatizing experience in the bakery.
What made me decide? Well, so I went to college. I went to the University of Arizona, like you did.
Just like
and I went to college mainly because I didn't want to be a bakery worker all my life. Because I was told that was my value. I was a good cake decorator, and I will always work for my aunt forever. That was basically my fate. But I was also really like clever. Like I thought about things. I was like, no, I don't want that life. I don't want that life. And so I started dreaming big dreams. And one of the things I did was I started visualizing. So every time I was tired, I would visualize a different life. And I would post photos and of the life I wanted to live. And it certainly was not, laboring at somebody else's bakery. And so I went to college, paid for it on my own with 4 scholarships, 4 jobs. And then I decided I was thinking maybe I'd just go to law school because I like to argue my case.
Right.
But I couldn't afford it. I was too poor. So this whole thread of poverty and dealing with things because you're poor, right? Like I could only afford that because I was poor. So we didn't come from privilege. We come from like immigrants who just basically scrapped by baking, But after I went to college, I felt very empowered, and where I thought I can really create a life that I want to create. And I met your father, and we decided to move to Washington State from Guam, mainly because my brother moved here. And we were going to open up a business because we couldn't find teaching jobs. And the only business that I really know of was the bakery.
Right. Well, you tried a cafe first.
Well, yeah, I thought that we were going to do a cafe. I was like, we're not going to do a bakery. We're going to do a cafe. We're going to have unlimited sandwich fillings and unlimited drinks for $5. And let's see how that goes. And the line was out the door, but we had no money. And
my favorite is, can you tell the story about the Thanksgiving soup?
Oh yeah, we were so scrappy. Like we were just we did all these shows. So there was a home show we were invited to do the food for, and we brought our little tiny espresso machine and we stuck it in Dad's van. I'm sorry, fell off twice, and we duct taped it together. We still made the show.
Oh my God.
And this was after Thanksgiving. This show happened after Thanksgiving. And so we had I just made up all kinds of stuff like tired of turkey chicken soup or tired of turkey soup or something like that. And it was like, I didn't describe it as chicken. I just said tired of turkey. And everybody loved this soup. Like at that time, that was in the 90s or the late 90s, mid 2000s, people, all of the frozen soups started becoming a big like thing. That people made soup and they pretended it was theirs. But I was like, no, I make my own soup. Like I did. Like my cafe, I made my own soup. That's like my superpower. I make soups, right?
Yeah, you do.
Called Tired of Turkey. And everybody loved it. And then my sister's like, what's in that soup? I said, turkey.
And during that time, Auntie Marianne was selling it as tired of turkey chicken soup. So she told everyone it was made out of chicken.
Because I cook. Like she's just like, I don't know who made up the name, but somebody was at the show, made up a name, and I was like, what was in there? Turkey. We did a lot of crazy things because we did not have a business plan. We did not have a plan. And you were not born yet.
Yeah, during the cafe time. So that was before 2090s.
Yes. You were not born yet. And then I had you. And then I was like, this is not going to work. I'm a kid. What am I going to do?
So how did you move from being a cafe to being a bakery?
So we're not doing good at all. We were not doing good. We were running out. You know how you know you're not doing good in business?
How?
When you're running out of cash and you can't buy ingredients.
Oh,
That's what fuels it, right? So you charge enough so that you make enough so that you'll have leftovers so that you can buy more stuff, and then that fuels your business, right? So it's called margin. I did not know what margin was. We had no margin. We had no profit. So next door was a flower shop, and I would go in her flower shop, and she said she'd be selling these flowers like for $50. I'm like, God, that's 10 sandwiches. How the heck? And then at the same time, I ended up at the Tacoma Dome, and there was a wedding show. And at the wedding show, I walked in, and I met this couple that only made wedding cakes, and I was like, no way. You make wedding cakes? That's it? Like, you don't have breads, you don't do sandwiches, nothing? And you have your house? Like, you have no rent? I was just fascinated. And so then I went to the owner of the show, John Buckles. His name was John Buckles. I said,
I remember the name.
Can you tell me more about this show? Like, what is this? I've never seen it. There was no things like that in Guam. That's where I knew, right? But that was my experience. There's nobody just specializing in cakes. And so then he goes, do my show, and you'll never have to worry about your business again. Because I, gave him the sob story of like, we're about to go bankrupt. We were. And I said, okay, I'll do my show. So I'll do your show. I gave him my credit card. Mm-hmm. And I just made everything up. Like, I literally just made copies of photos of cakes that I knew I could do, and created a brochure out of, I don't think it was Photoshop. It was something else. It was some software. I was really good at computers at that time. I was really good. I did like some graphic design, whatever, at that time. And Auntie Janice, Janice, who was our graphic designer, who's still our friend. Yeah. She created a brochure for us. And one day people walked, there was a day when people would line up for sandwiches and have coffee and share, 4 people share $1.25 cinnamon rolls and ask for all kinds of service. And then we shut that down, and the next day we're a cake studio. And
what happened to all the customers who wanted a cinnamon roll?
Just pretended like it never happened. It was so we're just like, we are now a cake studio. I'm like, it says Celebrity Bakery and Cafe. I said, and we'd say, cafe means coffee. Seriously, we literally just made everything up. It was so funny. Now, in retrospect, I mean, the good thing about it is we had good senses of humor, and it was upsetting, but then we'd end up just laughing because we're like, we are ridiculous. Like, we were just like, we are now a cake studio. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, that's false advertising. Like, cafe means coffee. And then we just started from there. We started selling cakes, and of course the margins for cakes are just like flowers. It depends because it's artistic. It was buyer, and that's how we started to take off.
Right. Yeah. And this is the part where I start to remember everything that happens. But we moved. So originally we were in Lacey. Can you tell the story about how we moved to Tacoma?
Sure. So our lease was ending, and I was like, all right, I'm going back to teaching. This was not a fun adventure, but it was an adventure, and it's over. Thank God. Because I did not want to leave our landlord hanging because we signed a 5-year lease. So that's one of the things when you have a business and you sign a lease, it's a liability for the duration of the time that you sign this lease. So I did not want us to be indebted. And I said, well, we are going to stay until the lease ended. So we stayed until the lease ended, which is 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, there was a bakery in Tacoma, the cake studio, who was our competitor in the wedding cake space. The owner passed away, and the husband was looking for me. This one was looking to sell the business. So at that time, I was 8 months pregnant with your brother. You were 3. And I was driving back and forth trying to figure out how to buy a business. And I went online, and there was this guy who wrote an ebook about buying a business for $99. He wrote an ebook, and this was when ebooks just started. And so I found him, and I bought his ebook, and he guided me through buying this business. He taught me due diligence. He told me what pro forma was. He taught me what EBITDA was. I mean, all of the terms, like, he taught me. And I was able to negotiate the deal with this guy who wrote this ebook. And that's how we were able to acquire the business. And then when we closed on that business, the same day, actually, when we were about to sign up on that business, I was about to deliver your brother. So I was on my way. I was actually taking a wedding cake order in Lacey, and I was having contractions. And the mother of the bride said, honey, I think you need to go to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, yeah, I think so too. Let me get your payment. So I shut the doors. And, one of the things we never did was we always made sure we stayed open when we say we're going to open. So this was extenuating. So we had to put a sign up. And basically I said, family emergency, we've shut down early. And so on the way, I called the lawyer. I said, I'm on my way to deliver my baby. Can you please have the paperwork done? Because I'll just come in and sign it. So I was,
wait, what?
I was at the lawyer's office, signing the documents to buy the business while having contractions. And then on my way to the hospital, I stopped by the mall and picked up Auntie Annie's pretzel because I was not going to be hungry. All the while, my doctor, your godmother, Dr. Sam, was looking for me because she knew I was about to pop.
I'm sure she was not happy with you having taken 2 stops before you got to the hospital.
Yeah, and then delivered your brother, and you came and spent the night with me and your new little brother. And the following day, we checked out of the hospital. I went to the bank, and that's when Celebrity Cake Studio was born. Teenage is your brother.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. And that's how I remember how old the bakery is how I remember how long we've been in Tacoma, because we moved to Tacoma when Aspen was born.
Right. That is cool. And then you were still little, you were a toddler, and you still needed me. And then I had a baby, and then we have a new business. So I had 3 babies to take care of, with all kinds of complications and all kinds of drama, right? Employees, et cetera. When we transition into a new business, it's not easy all the time, but that's what happened. But then you only remember the fun parts.
I only remember the fun parts. I remember in Freight House Square, there used to be an Irish tap dancing troupe upstairs. So when we stayed late, we'd have to be like, oh my God, the Irish tap dancing troupe is practicing right now, because they were right above our heads. It was so loud. It was like an earthquake whenever they were practicing.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I find it beautiful that you remember such fun things about it, because, I have to go through it in my brain. Like, oh my God, what am I subjecting my kid to? Same thing I did, not wanting to be here, wanting to play.
Yeah, but meanwhile, Aspen and I were always playing. I remember it was the best thing ever, because there was an alley behind the bakery, except it wasn't like a real alley. It was inside the building, because Freight House Square was this giant long building. And so in the alley, we could play no matter what the weather was because it was covered. And so him and I would bring our bikes, we'd bring our roller blades. Sometimes we would like take the carts that we would roll wedding cakes on, and I would put Aspen on the cart and I would get on the cart, and then we would like pretend we were on a boat.
Well, I think Great House Square is this like very old building in Tacoma, and that's where we had this Celebrity Cake Studio, the first version. Well, Cake Studio was there. So we consolidated, we moved there, and you grew up in the alley of Celebrity Cake Studio.
Yeah.
But with fun memories, apparently. I think that's okay as a mom.
Yeah, great memories. I remember I used to love sitting and watching all the decorators decorate. I remember I would sometimes do my homework with Uncle Wally on the big butcher block table in the back of the bakery. Like I just have very fond memories of that bakery. And then when I was 10, we moved again to our own building, right?
That was in 2012. And
I was 12.
And I think one of the most important things, the reason why it was a bit of a challenge for me, and that's why in my mind it wasn't as fun, was because we were also caring for your grandparents, my mom and my dad. My dad was going through cancer treatment. So my sister and I had to take care of him, take care of the baby, and take care of the children. So we're like the sandwich generation, right, at that time, so that we were straddling all kinds of things. And that's what happens with bakery ownership, or not bakery, but just business ownership altogether, especially as a woman. Everybody needs a mom, their mom, and then usually, as a caregiver for my parents, luckily your dad was such a great help. So we were like moving the business, we were pivoting, we were doing all kinds of stuff to keep the business alive and solvent and keep our employees like employed and paid, while taking care of you, making sure your well-being was taken care of, and making sure that, our parents were cared for and going to their appointments and radiation and chemo and all kinds of stuff. Right. So yeah, all the grays on my head has been earned.
And it looks beautiful.
Thank you, honey.
Yeah, I remember that was a lot, but it just kept getting better and better from my perspective, at least. Just every year, it got a little bit better for everyone. So I know it's been a hard journey, but what was your favorite story from having a bakery in Washington that you can remember now? Like, just your favorite story.
Well, probably having you there and your brother there, how much fun you guys have, and I remember you finally going to the wedding show. You must have been 7 or something like that. And your brother was little, and I let you go on your own. And, in this big, convention
center. Yeah.
Watching you and your brother learn how to be independent and, taking care of yourselves. I remember taking you to food shows and just letting you run loose and see what happens, and kind of dealing with that situation and see where you go, and how you dealt with people and how you dealt with making decisions and all that, even at a very, very young age. That was such a pleasure for me. But one really fun memory that I have with you and your sisters was when we were at the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh,
tickets. And one of the tickets, they allowed us to bring our food truck there, and we could sell cupcakes. And I let you kids run it.
Yeah, that's right. I don't remember how old we were, because I'm the oldest. So I was probably, how old was I? I was probably 14.
Oh, I don't know. I know the little one, Ani, was very small.
Ani was really small.
6, but she did math really well.
Yeah. If she was 6, then I was maybe 12 max.
Yes, you were very small. And then So you and your friends, your little friends ran this little business and you figured out pricing, you figured out like how to get change, you figured out like, oh my gosh, we should sell water. And you sold water, increased price because there's not enough water and the demand was high. So you knew about supply and demand. So I thought that was so cute and fun. And to watch you all just, learning. So look at all of you. You're all in college and doing so well for yourself.
I remember that. I remember we had Ani go. Ani wanted to sell the water and she was so little. And so she was pulling the wagon with an older kid, but we had her ask everybody if they wanted water because she was the cutest. So they definitely wanted to buy from Ani.
I think it's really important for kids to learn that experience, like that sort of independence. But yeah. And our next iteration, Milana, I'm very excited about. It's that you can explain to everybody the sun
behind me. Our next iteration is actually here in Tucson. I live here, and we recently got a garden venue, and we named it Hamaya Garden. And Hamaya, do you want to explain what Hamaya is, Mom?
Hamaya in Cebuano, which is my first language, means joy, profound joy, and very appropriate. Milana Joy is going to so this venue is going to be in Midtown Tucson. We'll be hosting high tea with our dragonfly cakes and desserts, and we'll be providing, wedding cakes possibly, and we will host events, culinary events, art events, etc. And while we are busy in Tacoma, while it's winter in Tacoma where there's no events, we'll be in Arizona, and then the reverse, right? Because Arizona will be shut down during the summer.
Yeah. And I'm super excited to have a venue and work on a business that is really leaning into our heritage and into our history. It's such a big part of how we came to America and how my family got here and how you got here, Mom. And I feel like it's something that I'm really excited and honored to get connected to through this project. Even in the design aspects, I'm like, I want it to look like a certain kind of way. I don't want any British fancy china. I want it to look like something that we can be proud of, that is in our
aesthetic
and our aesthetic. Yeah. So I'm really excited for this project. I think it's going to be super fun.
And the sun behind you is the Philippine sun.
Yes.
And those flowers are jasmine or sampagita, which is the Philippine flower. And that, it is an homage to our culture and where we came from, which is beautiful in its own way. And, I'm super excited to be on this journey with you, Milana.
Yes.
I'm so proud of you. And I am so grateful that you are my first guest host, a Celebrity Gourmet podcast.
I'm first, and hopefully not the last.
Not the last.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mom. Thank you for having me on here to be your guest host. Hopefully I can interview you and Auntie Mian too.
Oh, absolutely. That would be really super fun. Thank you. Thank you, honey.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Celebrity Gourmet Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.